to see you all here. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. I'm always very pleased to see when the microphones are at the right height for a short woman. But I'm going to make up with my shortness with hopefully a discussion about India's G20 presidency and renewable energy in particular. I'd like to thank the Economic Times for this opportunity to speak to you today, but also just having seen the Minister just previously. This is an invaluable opportunity, and I know that we're going to speak here today about the G20 presidency and energy transition. Through this event, we can survey India's formidable role in global energy transition. Such an event also enables a comprehensive strategic partner, such as Australia, to reflect on how best we can partner India in this endeavour. Addressing climate change and energy transition are core priorities for the Australian government, just as they are for the Indian government. Indeed, during Prime Minister Modi's recent stadium speech in Australia, I'm not sure if any of you saw it, but he was received incredibly warmly in Sydney by our Prime Minister, by much of our cabinet, and by over 20,000 members of the Australia-India diaspora. It was an event that gave me goosebumps. Prime Minister Modi ji said that the relationship with Australia was once known by the 3 C's: cricket, curry and Commonwealth. Cricket is still really important and Australians are obsessed with Indian food. But Prime Minister Modi went playfully in through the 3 Ds: democracy, dosti and diaspora. But he landed on the 3 E's: energy, education and economy. We are one of the few nations with which India, there are just 2 of us, Japan and Australia, that has a strategic comprehensive partnership, a free trade agreement, and obligation to have a commitment to have an annual summit. So we have a lot of opportunities to take this forward. As we know, India's G20 presidency is framed around an ancient and powerful philosophy that resonates strongly with Australia: one Earth, one family, one future. As the IEA Executive Director said just last week, carbon holds no passport. The atmosphere doesn't differentiate between emissions from north or south, east or west, which is why India's G20 manifesto and its imperative of collaborative action underpins energy transition. Australia is a very strong supporter of India's G20 presidency. We've had a huge lineup of Australian ministers come out to visit India to take part in the ministerial meetings as recently as the weekend before last in Varanasi. We welcome India's ambitious, action-oriented G20 agenda, including India's focus on sustainable development, of which energy transition forms an important part. India has, of course, set out 6 focal areas for the G20 energy transition stream. 1, addressing technology gaps. 2, low-cost financing. 3, energy security and diversified supply chains. 4, energy efficiency and responsible consumption. 5, fuels for the future, particularly green hydrogen. And 6, universal access to clean energy, as well as inclusive energy transition pathways. It is remarkable how well the Australia-India bilateral cooperation on renewable energy aligns with these priorities. Before I come back to G20, I wanted to speak a little about our bilateral partnership in this area. Australia and India's engagement on new and renewable energy began with a letter of intent signed in February 2022. It's always, I think, imperative for us as bureaucrats and officials and diplomats to explain what that means. It is based around sharing cutting-edge expertise and technology breakthroughs in 2 important fields: low-cost solar PV and green hydrogen. Our goal, our shared goal, is to connect Australia's world-leading solar and hydrogen technology with India's immense manufacturing scale and prowess to benefit not only both countries, the Indo-Pacific, but indeed the world. It is a pleasure, I understand, that the International Solar Alliance's Dr. Mathur will come shortly. It's a pleasure to be in this room with him, noting that we have shared endeavours on tireless work in deploying solar PV across the world. And we have worked, I noticed Minister Singh mentioned earlier the important work of the ISA. Australia has been in from the ground level, and we are working with the ISA to deliver scalable solar energy to the Pacific. Our shared goal is to bring new, globally competitive supply chains into the global market. You may have seen Foreign Minister Penny Wong say that there can be no global, affordable, scalable, renewable solutions without India. We need, as India's partners, and I know there are a number of us in the room here, to amplify India's renowned frugal innovation to make a difference. During Prime Minister Albanese's visit to India in March, he and Prime Minister Modi highlighted where we might collaborate across the entire renewable energy spectrum. A focus renewed, if you'll pardon the pun, when Prime Minister Modi visited Australia last month. The opportunities to collaborate go beyond solar and hydrogen. For example, our Prime Ministers noted the role of grid infrastructure and large-scale generation, energy storage and green hydrogen, as well as battery supply chains. Given these broad areas for future collaboration, our leaders committed to elevate our bilateral cooperation to a comprehensive renewable energy partnership, which is aimed at reducing renewable energy costs for our consumers and supporting energy transition. Renewable energy supply chains, including solar and green hydrogen, are multifaceted and extremely complex. We know that breaking into established value chains with new technology and value-added manufacturing is not easy. Diversifying supply chains to boost energy security is particularly acute for solar PV, where China's share of production exceeds 80% across all stages of production: polysilicon, wafers, cells, and modules. Without concerted efforts, this market dominance is expected to reach over 95% in coming years. And I think all of us would agree during the pandemic, concerns about concentrated supply chains really came to the fore. As the International Energy Agency noted in its latest Energy Technology Perspectives report, heavy concentration in supply chains increases the risk that localised disruptions can delay global efforts to accelerate the green energy transition. They said there are potentially risky levels of concentration in clean energy supply chains, both for the manufacturing of technologies and the materials on which they rely. So that is why our Prime Ministers launched 2 panels of experts to support the development of this critical nature of our partnership. Firstly, the India-Australia Solar Task Force, and second, the India-Australia Green Hydrogen Task Force. The Solar Task Force is well and truly up and running. It's delivering valuable insights into where our comparative advantages align. As the global green hydrogen economy gathers steam, we must also work together to ensure supply chains for electrolyzers and fuel cells do not become as concentrated as we've seen in the solar PV market. We're cooperating to diversify supply chains on critical minerals as well, which, as we know, for instance, includes critical components for solar panels, but also for batteries that underpin many renewable supply chains. For example, Australia and India are collaborating through our Critical Minerals Investment Partnership to explore joint investments in mining and processing of battery minerals, lithium and cobalt in particular in Australia. This work is progressing well. Australian Resources Minister Madeleine King, who I might add welcomed to Australia last year Minister R.K. Singh in July and met with him once again when she accompanied our Prime Minister in March. She has announced that 5 lithium and cobalt projects have been selected for detailed due diligence. And just today, Minister King has released a list of some 26 critical and rare earth minerals within Australia, 16 of which are assessed as having high geological potential. We have these minerals, but we don't alone have the investment and the JVs to extract them. In addition, CSIRO, Australia's national science agency, is leading a research and development partnership on critical minerals with India. This will see PhD exchanges and collaboration on cutting-edge, midstream critical minerals processing. For example, a graduate of IIT Kanpur will be based at Swinburne University, working with CSIRO researchers on the use of solar thermal technology in the recovery of rare earth critical minerals from monazite ore, a waste product of the sand industry. Global efforts, of course, must be underpinned by our work at home. Australia's federal budget this year announced measures to support our transition to net zero and to make the most of new and emerging technologies. We are striving to make Australia a renewable energy superpower. We've committed 2.2 lakh crore to this ambition via powering Australia with clean, cheap energy, and secondly, by powering net zero industries, jobs and communities. Some of these domestic efforts align with India's. For example, we know India is investing 19,744 crore into its national green hydrogen mission for developing green hydrogen production capacity. We're also reviewing Australia's national hydrogen strategy, which was first released in 2019. Since that release, 7 lakh crore, a pipeline of 7 lakh crore of announced hydrogen investment has emerged in Australia. So bringing this back to the G20, the IEA notes that renewable batteries, green hydrogen and other low-carbon technologies could create a market worth approximately 6.5 lakh crore in India by 2030. Collective action is critical, so I'm really pleased to share this stage and this audience with others from the international community, whose nations are also highly focused on securing collaborative solutions. Whether small or giant steps, Indian and Australian governments, companies, industry experts, academics, and researchers are working together to forge new pathways ahead. The G20 forms an important part of this picture of collective action. I'll finish with the words of Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong, who, when she was here for the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in March, said, "The G20 is one of the most important multilateral fora that we engage in. It was critical during the global financial crisis. There are not many fora where you can bring together diverse, developed and emerging economies at a time of intense strategic competition, of climate change, of pandemics and development challenges. This group of nations should consider all those issues. Under India's leadership, now is the time to intensify our efforts on energy transition together." Thank you.